Hello, Garifuna Market family. Hello, Garifuna fam. It's your girl Syria from the Garifuna Market checking in for our weekly self-care Sunday. Just gonna wait for a few more people to come in. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. Guity. Thank you for joining us. So I am Syria from the Garifuna Market. We are a platform made for our Garifuna people to reignite pride. As you know, thank you everybody who has been joining us throughout our journey. Today is our Self-Care Sunday, and we are going to be joined by Miss Nydia Guity. She is a licensed social worker and mental health professional. And with everything that's going on right now, I'm always talking about this. I think this is something that's going to be really helpful for us. So without further ado, we are now going to be joined by Nydia Guity. And while we wait, let us know where you're from. Where are you joining us from today?
Hello.
Hi. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Shout out to this light. I was setting it up. I was like,
yes, come through. Nydia, did I say your name right? Nydia.
Yes, you did. It makes me so happy when I hear people say my name the way it's supposed to be said. Nydia Guity. Because I always hear Guity, Guity, Guity. I'm like, that's not my name, y'all.
And that's a beautiful name.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Nydia, thank you for joining us today. I'm super excited right now to have you joining us.
Thank you. Syria, that's how I pronounce it, right?
Yeah, you can say Syria, either of those.
Syria. Okay, I'm going to say it how your mom says it.
Right.
How your relatives say it. Our names are beautiful. It's just that, they're not common. So, like, for people that don't know how to say it, it's like we kind of adapt, and it's like, I feel like years ago I learned it's like, nope, that's not how you say it. Nope, that's not how you say it. And I just coach people to say it correctly because that's how I want to respond. So Cydia, okay.
Exactly. Whenever I think about like somebody who kind of makes a nickname for themselves just for the comfort of others so that they can pronounce it, I'm just like, you know what, that's your name. Like that is your name. And they don't call you your name.
Right. People will adapt. They will adapt.
So, okay, so we have a few comments. Everybody is just letting us know where they're joining us from. Hello, everyone. We have Belize. Belize, what's good? We have Fairfax, Virginia, DC. We have the Bronx, Honduras. Hey, Greenville, South Carolina. What's good? Los Angeles, LA, Chicago. Wow. Garifuna in LA. Wow. Thank you everybody for joining us today. So Nydia, tell us a little bit about what you do. Tell us the difference between, the types of works that you do.
Okay. So by profession, I am a licensed clinical social worker. My degree is undergrad. I went to the University of Vermont. Yes, Vermont. And for grad school, I went to Fordham University. So after you get your master's in social work, the next step would be licensing. And I got my LMSW, which is my licensed master of social work, practiced psychotherapy for 3 years, and then finally got the licensed clinical social work, or the license for clinical social work, which is the terminal license in the social work profession. The next step after this would be a PhD, which I don't want. But all that means is that I can practice therapy individually without supervision. Which helps from like an insurance standpoint, because then I would be the sole provider, and then income will come to me directly as opposed to a third party if I were working like at an outpatient mental health clinic or even a group practice. It just means that I can now provide individual therapy or even group therapy independently under my license alone.
Wow, that's amazing. That is amazing. Congratulations on all of your accomplishments.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us again. Where are you based?
So I am originally from the Bronx, New York, born and raised, but I currently live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I've been here for 5 years. Coming this September will be 5 years.
Okay. Okay. Atlanta. Do we have anybody from Atlanta in the house? Anybody from the Bronx? Let us know in the comments. Yes.
Hey, Garifuna genius. Shout out to
Uh,
Elbert.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. So, Nydia, do you, and I ask everybody this question, do you think that your Garifuna ancestry or your Garifuna roots have anything to do with who you've become and in both, I guess, your personal and your work life?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. With social work, not so much. I feel like social work happened more to me as opposed to something that I sought out. And you know this, I feel like in the Garifuna culture, for the ones that have been able to pursue higher education, your options are limited on what's acceptable and what like your family is going to support. So you can either be a doctor, an engineer, an attorney, or like a disgrace to the family.
Right, right, right.
And people, my mom didn't understand social work. So long story long, when I initially went to the University of Vermont, my major was nursing. Because when the high school that I went to was Jane Addams Vocational High School.
Okay.
And my initial major there was cosmetology. I love doing hair. And my mom was like, oh, hairdressers don't make money. Like, you should be a nurse. And like with cosmetology, it's similar in that it's still in the helping profession, and it's very science driven when you really understand like the health of hair, the health of the body, the health of nails. It's very science driven. So like, of course I'm going to listen to my mom. So I shifted from cosmetology to nursing. Went to the University of Vermont, was a nursing major for a year and a half, and almost got kicked out of school because my grades dropped. And it wasn't because I was partying or doing like the typical freshman stuff. It was I was in an all white state as a Black person, which is traumatizing within itself. No family, no friends, and just dealing with the microaggressions from my professors on the day-to-day basis was a lot. So I switched from nursing to social work solely so that I could graduate on time, because I knew then that I wasn't going to do more than 4 years. It was like, look, my graduation is May 17th, 2009, and I don't care what I have to do, I'm going to graduate on that day. And I did, not with what I initially went to Vermont for. And my mom was like, oh, you know, you're going to figure it out. You're going to be fine. You know, social workers don't make much. And that was the narrative that kind of was ingrained in me. Like, you know, what am I going to do if I have this degree? I don't really know much about it. I don't want to take people's kids. I have no intention of doing that.
Right.
But it's something that I shifted to learn how to grow to love. And then more opportunities came from it. And this is when the behavioral health side presented itself. I want to say my senior year of undergrad, prior to going into grad school, is when I learned that clinical social work is a thing, that I can do individual therapy, and then learning, well, what's my space in that? Because I've always been inquisitive as a kid, like, well, why this? Why that? Well, if you're angry about this, like, I want to understand why, because it doesn't make sense to me. But how do you sell this in a way that's mainstream where people will buy into it? Because the reality is that no one wants people to know their business, let alone the stranger. So it's just like, well, what are you going to tell me about myself that I don't already know? And it's like, well, that's not therapy. I'm not here to tell you about yourself. I'm here to support you in processing what maladaptive behaviors keep getting in the way of whatever success looks like for you. Because you can't have the same issue with different people and then blame everybody else. Like, at some point, we have to self-reflect. And it's like, well, what is it about this situation that keeps invoking this emotion in me that, you know, takes me to a space where I don't want to be, or shifts me to be this character or person that I don't want to be on the day-to-day basis.
Right. That is really inquisitive, for real, and helpful information. Specifically with everything that's going on right now, what would you say are some of the common issues that people are experiencing more than ever?
Definitely anxiety. I would say financial distress has been a really, really, really big thing. And this is where like thinking about entrepreneurship would be helpful, because a lot of people go to work every single day for however many hours a day, and they rely on a certain amount of money in order to make sure that they're making ends meet. So things are very uncertain right now. Like, you know, am I going to be able to pay my rent? Am I going to be able to buy food? Food is another big thing. Like, you know, you go to the supermarket. Well, here we have Walmart and like farmers markets. You know, is what I need going to be there? Because people are buying everything in bulk, toilet tissue, paper towels. And it's like, if you're already on a fixed income or a limited income, you're not going to have the finances to kind of just either travel further out or have the patience to sit through that and then be surrounded by a lot of people. That's another thing I've been hearing. People are not respecting social distance. So I may go to the supermarket and this person is like directly behind me, like I need space. And how do I say that in a way where I'm being assertive, but also not buying into the fear of the unknown? Because prior to COVID-19, this wasn't something that people were all that concerned about. Some people were like, back up. But now more than ever, like, I need you to honor that, because I don't want to bring anything to my family, and I don't want to catch anything. I don't want to be in the hospital.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Anybody who is just joining us, we are with Nydia Guity. She is a licensed social worker and therapist. And any questions that you guys have, please start asking in the comments, and Nydia is going to answer to the best of her ability.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for joining us, everybody.
Nice to see some names. I feel like you see them better on your end, because I only see two and then they fade out. Yeah, it's a different end on here.
Hopefully we can see it on the reruns.
Right.
And Nydia, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I think that, well, I'm a therapist who's also in therapy, and I feel like this is something that I've been practicing for so long, where it's just like, you know what, we're not going to always have all the answers. But what am I able to focus on, and what is in my control is what I'm going to invest my time in. So I always ask myself, like, have the bills been paid? Yes, thank God for that. Do I have food on the table? Absolutely so. And am I happy with what I have in the moment? And if the answer is yes to all these three things, then that's really all I can focus on. I also minimize my news consumption. So I'm not, letting CNN play all day. Like, I hear people say, I'm so anxious. Okay, well, walk me through your day. Well, I'm doing this, this, and this. And it's like, well, no wonder you're anxious. No wonder you're anxious. There's some things that you can minimize. And that's what we need to focus on, not focusing so much of our attention on those kinds of things. Because when you turn on the news, even again, before COVID-19, you don't turn on the news and hear good news for the most part. It's either a shooting, a robbery, something happened, a triple homicide. Is always something that's not positive. And if you make that a part of your routine, rightfully so, your anxiety is going to be activated. All of our emotions are intended to work in harmony. And sometimes either anger, anxiety, frustration becomes activated. And then that's the emotion that's taking lead. Well, that emotion is there to protect you. So this anxiety is like telling your body, like, excuse me, sis, bro, I don't like this. I don't like how this feels. Right. What do we need to do to address that? When you feel anxious, it's for a reason. And when we keep ignoring it or minimizing it, it just grows and grows and grows. And it's like, okay, well, I don't want it to go away because it's a protective factor. It's supposed to keep me safe, but how do I minimize it just a little bit? So to kind of give the viewers an example of like what I mean by minimizing managing. So let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I'm not anxious and 10 being like I can't take it. If you rate your anxiety, let's say at an 8, the goal in minimizing and managing is how do I bring this 8 to a 7.5? Are you still anxious? Absolutely so, but not as anxious as you were before, which is still progress, because you're not going to go from 8 to 1 in one day. Some people do, but that's also not saying that's not self-sustainable. So like, again, another example would be, let's say someone that wants to work out or like, bodybuild or lose weight. You don't go to the gym one time and come out with the body that you want. Because if you do, tell me that gym so I could go. You don't do that. It just is not going to happen. You're going to come out, you're going to come out of that gym sore, frustrated, and just tired. But the person that works out 3 times a week for 6 months, a year, changes their water intake or drinks more water consistently, changes their diet, has accountability partners that work out with them, they're going to see results. And it's the same thing with behavioral health. Think of therapy like the gym for the mind. I think I saw a question. Maybe you could see it.
Yeah, somebody asked, Master Bob 119 said, really good story. What benefits will someone get from going to CBTs?
So CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. I would say that as far as your treatment plan goes, if and when you were to participate in individual or group therapy, this would be a conversation to have with your therapist. So CBT is a modality of therapy. CBT is not for everyone. They have DBT, which is didactic behavioral therapy. There's IFS, internal family systems. There's psychoeducation, which is more like learning, not really, I guess, a therapy modality, but it kind of just depends on what your individual goals are. Because then from there, you can steer your treatment. So kind of to go back on the comment that I made of, well, what is the therapist going to tell me about myself? The therapist is not supposed to tell you anything about yourself. The goal is to guide you, support you, and guiding you in the path that you want to go on. So think of your therapist as like the co-pilot or like the passenger to the car that you're driving. Wherever you want to go, then your therapist is supposed to support you in getting there.
Right.
And at some point, get off, because therapy is not forever.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. And there are different types of therapists, right? So every therapist is probably not the right therapist.
Right.
So how would you suggest people, kind of vet who is right for them?
I think making a list of what's important to you, like your non-negotiables, is going to help lead you to the right person. So I think of therapists kind of like shoes. I'm not walking outside barefoot. And not all shoes are comfortable. So I'm going to keep trying different shoes until I find the right fit. Same thing with therapy. So I know for me, my therapist is a Black woman. I needed her to be a Black woman. She's a clinical psychologist. I was hoping not to have a licensed clinical social worker as my therapist. And the reason for that for me is because I'm in the field. So I don't want to go to trainings and run into you. Or like,
right. And now you know.
Right. So at least with a clinical psychologist, we're still in the same field, but the likelihood of me running into her in like professional settings is not as high as it would be with another fellow social worker. I feel like social workers are great therapists, the ones that have LCSWs, but I was looking at it more from a professional standpoint. How is this going to affect me if and when I'm going to like professional spaces? So making a list of what your non-negotiables are is going to help lead you to, who's more appropriate for you. That's a great question.
Thank you, Nydia. And Talina Garcia asked, what are realistic coping tips for taking care of elderly family members at this time? What would you suggest?
That is tough.
Yeah.
I would ask you, what's realistic? Because as a world, we haven't gone through this in this phase in the way that this looked. So to say, A is realistic or B is realistic, I would even ask the elderly people in your family that you are taking care of, like, what do you need from me? What would you need from me? And then take inventory on whether or not you can deliver. Because again, one of the things with therapy is like people say, well, tell me what to do. I can't do that. I can give you A, B, and C as a suggestion, as a guide, but you can do A, B, and C and still fail. Then the question then becomes, what is it that you would need at a time like this to help ease whatever concerns or anxieties or whatever triggers that are coming up for you? So I would encourage you to ask the elderly people in your family, what is it that they need from you?
Right. Okay. Good answer. Everybody who is just now joining us, we are with Nydia Guity. She is a licensed social worker and a therapist. And if you have any questions with what's going on, internally, or any guidance that you would really like, just ask us in the comments, and Nydia is going to help us to the best of her ability.
Side note, I love when you say Guity. I'm like, yes, there's people in the world who say the last name right.
I can't. Yeah, it's. I like to pronounce people's names correctly. For sure. Anybody who has questions in the comments, please don't bother asking. I mean, please do ask. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through here to see if we missed anything. Okay. So Nydia, so you do social work, but you also do therapy. Is there are those two separate things for you?
It's the same thing. So with social work is a path into the psychotherapy space or individual therapy space. So you have LPCs, which is licensed professional counselors. That's another way to become a therapist. You have LMFTs, licensed marriage and family therapists. You also have clinical psychologists. You have psychiatrists, which are medical doctors. These are all ways for you to provide individual therapy. Now, they're all different routes. Some of them require doctorates, others don't. Others require terminal licenses. Others have like different specialties. My route just happens to be social work. That's how I kind of maneuvered into the individual therapy space.
Okay. Yeah. I did not know that there were so many different
Absolutely.
types of a social worker. So this is really enlightening to know.
Yeah.
Lotus Princess asks, how do you cope with a parent that has been diagnosed with depression, but doesn't want to go through the healing process?
I feel like I'm not going to generalize, but I kind of am in a way. I think that this is the story for our community when it comes to like understanding trauma. And you I don't know how old you are, but I would just say like the younger generation now being more aware of like feelings and emotion and like the benefits of what healing can do for the time that you have left in this world, and then kind of just seeing like, okay, this person really doesn't want to grow. You kind of have to meet people where they are. You may see the benefit for them and they may not see it themselves. So it's almost like you're going this way and they're going this way and you're constantly like battling back and forth. I would just say be present with them in where they are in the moment, and drop seeds here and there, but don't force something that they're not ready to do.
Because that's really tough.
It is. Because again, you can see the progress for someone, but if they don't see it for themselves, like it's more tasking for you. Now that would be my concern. What is it like for you to keep pushing this person to do something they don't want? They may not be ready. And right now it's not always the time for everybody.
Absolutely. Most definitely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Master Bob asks, what is typically the timeline to determine if the therapy is effective? You do short term.
Yes. So at my full-time job where I used to work, I was kind of like the bridge between family practice and long-term behavioral health, because sometimes people don't want to be in therapy for a long time. The stigma that comes with that is like, well, what's wrong with me that I have to be here for like 6 months or see this person for a year? There's really no set timeline for individual therapy. And again, going back to the example that I used, you're the one that determines that. So depending on whatever the circumstances are going on, you may only need, 3 months worth, where it's like on the bi-weekly basis for like 3-6 months, you're going to meet with this person to address whatever it is that you're going through. And then you would take inventory, like, am I doing better? Am I feeling better? Do I need ongoing support with this issue? So it might be a goal that you've already accomplished, and then before you know it, something else comes up. So it kind of just depends on what you feel your need is. And I'm like the queen of examples. So I'll give you another example. Think of like, when you fly, some flights are 45 minutes, others are 18, 22, whatever. I don't care how comfortable that seat is. When you reach your destination, similar to therapy, when you reach your goal, you get off the plane. You terminate with that therapist. Like, okay, I've gotten what I needed. I don't need to come back. Now, it doesn't mean you're never going to get back on the plane again. You may not get back on the plane to go to the same place. So it's the same thing with therapy. You may not come back for the same issue, hopefully, if the treatment was effective. Now you're coming back for something else, because we're always growing and evolving. And in the journey to personal growth and development, you don't graduate. Like, you're constantly evolving, constantly shedding skin, because the things that were an issue for me a year ago are not anymore. But now, like, what I'm working through now, I've never had to work through before. So it's always something to grow.
Right. And sometimes when you're in a therapy session, right, your clients per se, I imagine that they have one particular issue that they want to address, and then they start to unpack way more than they realize. Is that common?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've even had more so like in the outpatient community mental health setting, people like tell me, oh, well, I don't need therapy. And it's just like, okay, I'm not here to convince you that you do, because I want to work with people who actually are ready and prepared to go through that process. So I've learned in my professional growth that like my job is not to sell therapy to you. If you're ready, I'm here. But if you're not, I respect and honor that too. Because to push something on someone when they're not ready to do it, you don't know what you're going to unpack by forcing it. So when people are ready, then I'm all ears.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Angelina asked, what are ways to deal with trauma when you don't have access to therapy?
So what do you mean don't have access to therapy? Like not having insurance, it not being an option, but like at least with what's there. So what ways do you deal with trauma? So I would say the thing that is accessible is minimizing and managing those symptoms. So again, the scale like from 1 to 10, 1 being not stressed out and 10 being completely stressed out. Wherever you are on that scale, I would encourage you to find things that help distract your attention from whatever is triggering you. So for some people, it could be crocheting. I know that that's something I love to do. Adult coloring books, minimizing interactions with people that trigger those feelings in you. I don't know what you mean by trauma, but trauma looks different for different people. So stepping away from those spaces is important so that way your body is not activated, because our bodies respond to negative experiences. It could be something like a smell that's unsettling. Maybe someone that looks like someone that has done something not so great to you. Sometimes it's sounds. Sometimes it's the tone in which someone speaks to you. It may not even have anything to do with that person, but what they remind you of is what triggers that trauma response. So being aware of what those triggers are and also minimizing your exposure to them is a way to start to cope if therapy is not accessible to you.
Wow, those are amazing points, Nydia. And just you saying some of the things that you did just made me think that sometimes it's really hard to even make yourself aware of your triggers. What would you say to the awareness part?
I would say it's definitely a personal journey that takes time, because to be self-aware is almost like to put the mirror up and really look at your sugar honey iced tea. And most of us are not ready to do that. I can tell you about yourself and what you've done and what's wrong, but like, can I do that for me? And most people can't, or not that they're, well, let me rephrase that. It's not that they can't. It's challenging to do, and most people are unwilling to do that because of what they have to face for themselves. I know, like when I first started going to therapy, maybe like, well, it's been on and off for a long time, but consistently for the past 2 years, there were things that it was like, okay, this is me. This is a me issue. This is not her. This is not him. This is not that. This is me. And then every time you do that U-turn, okay, this is me. It's like, dang, well, what's wrong with me? And it's just like, it's not that something is wrong with you. It's that now these things are coming to your awareness. Now that you know, what are you going to shift and pivot so that this is not a reoccurring issue?
Right. Excellent tips. For those that are just joining us, we are with Nydia E. Guity. Nydia E. Guity. She's a licensed social worker and therapist, and she is answering our questions for Self-Care Sunday. If you guys have any questions, please put them in the comments, and she will answer them to the best of her ability. Thank you again for joining us, everybody. Thank you.
Hey, y'all.
Okay. Just checking here if there are any questions we might have missed.
Hey,
Someone did ask if you were related to somebody.
Probably. If their last name is Guity, probably.
We're like all cousins in here, right?
Everybody. Oh my gosh. When I would go home, my mother's like, oh, do you know so-and-so? And I'm like, do you know them? Because if my mother knows your mom, we're related. And it's just like, we're not going back and forth with that.
Right? I've like grown up around other people who I know were not my blood cousin. So it's like, as an adult, when I'm introducing them to someone, or someone asks like, how do you guys know each other? I'm like, we're cousins. And they're like, well, how? I'm like, we just cousins.
Are.
Like,
we just are. Stop asking questions.
Right. Again, everybody, if you have any questions, we have a few more moments. Please ask them in the comments. Don't be hesitant to ask. Someone had asked, Just scrolling up. Why
Okay.
did you get into social work? She did explain that in the beginning.
So just a recap. So long story short, the reason why I went to social work is because initially when I was in undergrad, my major was initially nursing. And in order to graduate on time, that's really the only reason I switched to social work. So when you watch the replay of this live, I'll go into more details as to what that story was that led to social work.
Definitely. Nydia, have you seen kind of like in some of your patients kind of like childhood trauma that never came to them until they became an adult?
I think that childhood trauma stays with you until you address it. It's almost like emotionally, your emotions stay in childhood, but it's almost like your body grows up. So you see a lot of 45, 50-year-olds who are really still like 16 emotionally. And that would manifest in like, let's say with anger, when people kind of like just snap at you. And it's just like, over a pen? Like, did this situation really warrant that kind of response? And for them, probably yes. Where whatever you said or whatever you did or whatever the situation was triggered a trauma response in them, where now this is how that emotion is almost like a firefighter. Like, this is how this emotion protects them. And that emotion can still very well be stuck in the past. So I think that childhood trauma is kind of like all this luggage that you carry with you. And you get further and further in life. And until you unpack that stuff, like, it stays with you.
Right. It's just like getting heavier and heavier, the load.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's really interesting. For those that are just joining us, we are with Nydia Guity. She's a licensed social worker. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. And Nydia, you have already answered so many questions for us so far. Like, I've run out of questions myself with all of the helpful information that you've given us. Are there any additional tips that you would want to give to anybody who's just really coping with different types of things, but all under the umbrella of this quarantine?
So I would definitely say extend grace and compassion to yourself first and foremost. Life is hard. Life is hard. Life is challenging. I don't know what your specific situation is, but I do trust and believe that you are doing the best you can with what you have and what's available to you in the moment. As far as like emotional growth and well-being, just put one foot in front of the other and get to whatever goal that you're looking for. Instead of like looking or highlighting so much the destination, that end point is like, well, with where I am right now and what I have, what's the one thing that I can do? And just focus your attention on that. Because we multitask, but I don't think that anyone is really great at multitasking, because something is not going to have your undivided attention. And when it comes to your emotional growth and well-being, you need your undivided attention, so that this isn't something that you have to keep relearning over and over again.
Absolutely. So something that I guess a big takeaway that I've gotten so far from our conversation is being aware, being self-aware. And then also, I guess, in a sense, just having some gratitude, and also putting one foot in front of the other, taking it a day at a time and doing the best that you can. Husky asked, how can you bring someone's trauma or negative behavior to light without offending them? What would you say to that?
So never bring up their trauma, especially if you know it. But as far as the result of whatever traumatic experience they have, so I think you can address the negative behavior or the maladaptive behavior. I have questions about that though. Like, what is your relationship to that person? And do you feel safe and comfortable talking about it? Because I think that one thing with being like a helper or someone who's generally concerned for someone else is that not everybody is going to receive your message well. So it may not be up to you to have that conversation with them. So if there's a way for you to take inventory of, who this person is, how is your message going to be received, then I would encourage you to have that conversation with them. And sometimes you just have to fall back and let people have their journey or their moment, because it may not be up to you to, bring it up to them. Because I struggle with that. Well, I'm just telling the truth. Well, guess what, Nydia? Everybody doesn't need to hear the truth coming from you. It's not your place to do that. So I would, I have questions about that. We can talk about it. Well, if you DM me and tell me the situation a little bit more, I may be able to provide better clarification.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. If anybody has any more questions, please, now is your chance. Perfect. Okay.
All right, so good. No DM then.
Okay. Anybody else? Just giving it another moment. How's your day today, Nydia?
My day has been real chill. This is the first day where I haven't been working. So with COVID-19 and my position being essential, like a lot of people, the world is feeling anxious. So I've been getting a lot of contract assignments and also working a lot to minimize and manage or support people in minimizing and managing those symptoms. So telehealth has been really big with providing therapy. It's kind of like FaceTime, but with your therapist, so that people feel heard, respected, but also reassured that they are doing the best that they can with what they have, and then providing additional coping skills, of course, based on what their needs are, so that they can manage with what they have.
And thank you for all that you do, because that's really important, because a lot of people will feel like they're alone, and there's nobody who will listen to them or understand them. So thank you for all that you do. Seriously. I think that's an amazing thing. Are there any resources that you are able to share with us in terms of any upcoming programs or offerings that you have in particular?
So I have my personal podcast. It's going to launch on Wednesday, April 15th. It's called Naturally Ever After, where I just kind of talk about the natural hair journey, but also the emotional growth that comes with no longer wearing a relaxer or having relaxed hair. And it's very behavioral health driven, which I'm so excited about, because I think that, at least for me, when I stopped relaxing my hair, it wasn't just the growth of my hair, but also the growth emotionally that came from that. So that's a free podcast that you're going to have access to on SoundCloud. If you follow my business page, which is Miss Guity, LCSW, I'm posting on it every day. So that's a new venture that's coming out. And I also co-authored in 2 books. One of them called Black Therapists Rock, A Glimpse Through the Eyes of Experts, and Unchain Me Mama, The Forgiveness Factor. And again, it's more sharing my personal story. And I think that with therapy, it's helpful to connect with your audience, because I'm not immune from the human experience. Like, granted, I'm in this field, I'm supporting people, but I'm not like a robot. I'm never going to be. And I have, my own challenges.
You're human too.
Right, absolutely. But being able to address that is the reason why I feel that I'm so good at what I do, because I've experienced some things too, and as a result of that, I can support you and yours.
Amazing. Somebody has a comment here for you. GE and Talents. I just finished reading Unchain Me Mama. I loved every bit of it, but your story was the most relatable to me. Thank you for sharing it. The book was very uplifting and encouraging. JD.
Thank you so much.
That's dope. That's amazing. You say you have 2 books?
Yes.
That's amazing. Can you repeat the titles of those books for us?
So the first one is Black Therapists Rock, A Glimpse Through the Eyes of Experts. I think I have it here on my desk. Hold on.
Okay,
so this is the first one. Black Therapists Rock, A Glimpse Through the Eyes of Experts. And I did this with a group of other therapists, and kind of like the titles that I mentioned to you earlier. It's just
Can you put it back up? I turn off the comments so we can see it a little more.
A collection of stories.
Amazing. Okay, dope.
Both can be found on my website. And this one is Unchain Me Mama, The Forgiveness Factor.
Super cool.
Thank you.
Wow. Love that. Okay, someone said, side note off topic, Nydia, when you going back to Honduras?
That's my cousin Willie. What's up, cousin? I don't know. Like, my dad is there now. My plan was to go this year, but with everything that's going on, probably not. I do want to go when both my parents are there, because the last time I went was in 2014. And it's been a while, so soon. That's the best answer.
Hopefully, yes. HJZR said, I have found that music has been a great way to go through these tough times. Gracias por the punta parties. Saludos de Boston. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
These punta parties have been bomb. So
Thank you.
good.
It's just such a enlightening thing. It's like really fun. Like I really wanted to bring that experience of going out on Saturday night. Like it's still Saturday, you know, like let's enjoy ourselves however we know how. You know?
I feel like this platform has been bringing back like great memories of like what our childhood was like, you know, getting ready for these punta parties and, you know, getting dressed up and having fun, listening to music that I have not heard in such a long time. And like to bring it back to coping, and I love that, who was it? J_HJZR said, you know, music is the way to cope. The arts, like people are drawing now, people are learning or being forced rather to be creative because you don't have anything else to distract your time with. So the arts is really, really important and is a way to express yourself in a way that may not be verbal all the time. Because again, therapy is not for everyone at any given moment. So even if you don't want to see someone like me to address whatever things you've been going through, if drawing is your outlet, go ahead and draw. If music is your thing, go ahead and write music, create beats, do whatever it is that you need to do so that you can feel better.
Definitely, most definitely. And that kind of reminds me of hair too, because you're really big on hair. So would you say that, you know, doing hair is therapeutic for you?
It is, but it's not, because I have a lot of it. So it takes me a long time to just do my hair in general, but like how I feel about it has shifted. And I think for me, that's what my platform is about, how we feel about the hair that we naturally have that grows out of our heads. Because my hair is not like yours. So you, with your beautiful braids, the beauty supply store is closed now, but let's say I have packs of hair and it's like, oh, well, my hair doesn't look like CDS hair. Well, my hair is not your hair. It's not going to look exactly the same. I need to love my hair for what it is, the way that it is. And what I did for it in that moment is the best. So I think comparison also triggers emotions in people because it's like, oh, well, I don't have what she has. And it's like, but you're not. On your best day, you will never be this person. So why are you trying? Be the best you and focus on that.
Yeah, with that comparison, you're never gonna win with that.
Ever.
There's always someone who's better at something, but there's always someone that's better than them at something. So, which is not perfect at all. So I'm glad that you brought that up about comparison, because a lot of that, you know, the content on social media, you know, can be very triggering as well.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Nydia, for joining us for our therapy hour. Everybody who has joined us, please follow Miss Guity, LCSW, right?
LCSW, yep.
Miss Guity, LCSW. So follow her. follow her, and I will be following your journey as well and tuning into your podcast, which you said is launching Wednesday,
April 15th. Yep.
April 15th. Amazing. Thank you, everybody, so much. I hope that this has been helpful. If you have any questions, you can DM Nydia with your questions. Again, I'm Syria from the Garifuna Market, and thank you for joining us. The next up, we have the next event so far is going to be next Saturday with a Punta Party pregame. We are going to be joined by DJ Young Wavy Fox, and then you guys are going to be sending us your Punta videos. And then next Sunday, we're going to be joined by When Love Works for another therapy hour. Yeah, so thank you so much. Really appreciate your time, and have a beautiful day.
Happy Sunday,
Thank you, Nydia.
Bye.
Bye.